So in our first community worship service back in September of last year, the theme of the day was how the Lord gathers his flock. And we considered some of the reasons why we as individuals and collectively as a community might feel scattered and lost. And what the Lord does to bring us back into the fold. In our second service last October, we talked about rebuilding that which is lost, and what that might look like in our own lives, and again, collectively as a community. And we looked at the story of the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, and how it wasn't going to be like the original, that beautiful building built by Solomon. It was going to be different and better. So today we conclude this opening three-part series by looking forward, by considering the future. For this we turn to the second part of Jeremiah's letter to the captives. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets and your diviners who are in your midst deceive you. For they prophesy falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, says the Lord. For thus says the Lord, after 70 years are completed at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word toward you and cause you to return to this place. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you, and you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. I will be found by you, says the Lord, and I will bring you back from your captivity. I will gather you from all nations. So what are the plans? What are the Lord's plans for us as individuals and collectively as a church community? What kind of future can we expect? How do we lay the foundation for a future that is more peaceful and has less angst, that is more hopeful, and a future that doesn't repeat the mistakes of the past? Well, the first thing in my notes here is I have a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is I don't know what the Lord has in store for us as individuals or for this community. None of us can make that kind of prediction about how things will be tomorrow or next month or a year from now or 2 years from now or 10 years from now. And if you think about it, this isn't really the purpose of the Lord's Word, to predict future events. And we shouldn't really search the Lord's Word for signs or use it like a fortune cookie. The truths of the Lord's Word are there to calm our anxious minds, to give us perspective, to broaden our mind, and to teach us things that we didn't know. The truths of the Lord's Word are there to heal our broken hearts, to uplift and inspire change, spiritual change. They're there to help us become new people where we confront our bad habits and we take on new loves implanted by the Lord in us. The truths of the Lord's Word are there to help us become spiritually reborn. So when we consider a subject like the future, what we learn or what we're encouraged to think about is more attitudinal in nature. We know that we have a future, eternal life, because the Word says so. But the teachings of the Church tell us that how we can hold the future and what we can do about it. Is it something that we're at peace with? Or is the future something that we dread? And more importantly, is there something that we can do now that affects the future? Now, I'm going to ask what might seem like a strange question, but I want you to think about the future and ask yourself, what is your relationship like with the future? Is it friendly Hostile? Neutral? Maybe you try not to think about it. Or maybe you're too busy to even give it any thought. Or maybe you really like planning for the future. Well, this letter from Jeremiah to the captives in Babylon is so instructive and so inspirational. It was a letter that you wouldn't really expect to get, because if you think about being captive, you would want a letter that's sort of like a pep talk. Hang in there, you can do it. But this is not what that letter was about. The letter did make a prediction that their captivity would end after 70 years. And there are similar predictions in the Word, that there will come a time, for example, when we, with the help of the Lord, will become victorious over evil, that our captivity to certain bad behaviors and thoughts and patterns will eventually end. The Word predicts that there is a spiritual world that we will all enter one day after the death of the body. The Word predicts that there is a heaven and a hell, and that good people go to heaven and bad people go to hell. The Word predicts that we will be eternally happy to the degree that we can turn to the Lord and live by His truths. And there are other kinds of predictions that are just breathtaking when we read about them in the teachings of the new church. But the Lord's instructions through Jeremiah were to learn to live within the context of their captivity, to not fret over it, or to avoid the reality of this captivity. And what a beautiful thing in this letter. Build homes, plant gardens, raise a family. That was the letter, that was the instruction. Seek peace in the city, for in its peace you will have peace. So the message to the Israelites in captivity was, don't worry about the future. Your peace is right here, now, in front of you. That's what the teachings of the new church say about our own spiritual captivity. This is from the work, Secrets of Heaven. People are said to be in spiritual captivity when inwardly they are maintained by the Lord in goodness and truth, but outwardly they are kept by the hells in evil and falsity, as a result of which there is conflict between our inner and outer self. This conflict takes place to the end that our outward self, or natural self, may be brought into obedience to our inner self, and in this way natural things may be made subordinate to spiritual ones. What's being talked about here in our adult lives is this combat against things that trouble us. It's a battle between our old self, or you could call the ego, and our new self, the one that the Lord is implanting in us, this new creation. And it is a struggle. It captivates us. So in the context of this story, though, the teachings of our church are encouraging us to acknowledge this captivity, acknowledge its presence, acknowledge that it's there, and accept it for what it is. Now the teaching says, those who are undergoing temptations, and a way to think about temptations in adult life is simply an attack on a good love. Whatever good thing that you're trying to do, the hells, evil spirits, will try and attack that. Otherwise there won't be a temptation, there won't be a trial. But it's when we try to do the right thing that we come under attack. So those undergoing temptation hang between a negative and positive outlook. Those who give up in temptation remain in a doubting and sink into a negative frame of mind, whereas those who don't give up still experience feelings of doubt, yet they allow themselves to be filled with hope, which keeps them steady in an affirmative outlook. But we might say, wouldn't it be much easier if we just had a little bit more about life that's predictable, a little bit more certain? And this question is addressed in the book Divine Providence. Why aren't we permitted to get glimpses of the future? If the future is a real thing, and we're all headed in this spiritual direction, then why aren't we permitted to see more of it? The book Divine Providence 178 says that the Lord doesn't permit us a knowledge of future events simply because we wouldn't be happy, even though we think that that's certainty, that, oh, okay, that's what's going to happen. It wouldn't make us happy. We'd actually find it disturbing, but more importantly, it would take our spiritual freedom away. And here's the thing. The very uncertainty of the future is what keeps us human. It keeps us alive and focused and engaged and determined to better ourselves. The uncertainty of the future enables us to want to try again and seek to be more mature in our love for the Lord and the neighbor. As this teaching in divine providence ends, if we knew the result or outcome of something because of some divine prediction, our reason would come to an end, and so would our love. So the message today is that the captives in Babylon were being encouraged to live in the present. And it was in living in the present, faithfully and true, that made the future for them much brighter and hopeful. By taking the Lord's advice, they were stepping into the Lord's future, and the Lord's future is always full of promise and hope. If you have a program in front of you, I encourage you to read this beautiful passage from the book Secrets of Heaven that talks about the origin of the angel's happiness. And it has everything to do with this ability to be able to sit comfortably and safely in the present, because there's so much that happens in the present that we miss. The more interior and perfect angels become, the less do they care about things of the past or think about those of the future. This is the origin of their happiness. They have said that the Lord provides them every moment with what to think, accompanied by blessing and happiness, and this being so, they have no cares or worries. This also is what is meant in the internal sense by the manna being received day by day from heaven, and by the daily provision of bread in the Lord's Prayer, as well as by the statement that they must not worry about what they are to eat and drink, or what clothes they are to put on. But although angels have no care about things of the past and are not worried about the future, they nevertheless have a most perfect recollection of the past and a most perfect insight into the future, because their entire present includes both the past and future within it. That's the kind of passage that you could look at and contemplate and reflect on for a long time, and we don't have that time, but I encourage you to think about that the present contains our past and it contains our future, which means that the present is so incredibly important in terms of what we do with it. It's the only place where change can happen. The Lord and his angels cannot flow into our mind in terms of past events. And the Lord and his angels cannot flow into our mind with respect to future events. It's the here and now, right now. This is extremely important when we think about those spiritual trials that we go through, when we're trying to do the right thing, when we're trying to stand behind what we believe. It's a good thing, and the hells will move in and try and attack that. But the thing that's so beautiful, and this is one of the beautiful teachings in our church, consistently taught throughout these different books, is that the evil spirits only have power over the past and over the future. They have no power in the present, in the now, because they work on things from our past, things that we've maybe done wrong and we still feel guilty about. They will dredge up memories from the past and try to lock us in the past. Or they're fine with the other one, the future, worrying about things that haven't even happened and locking us into an anxiety about the future. But where the real power, spiritual power, resides is in the here and now. And that's why Jeremy delivered that message to the Israelites in their captivity. Build homes, plant gardens, raise a family. Continue living, continue doing what you know to be right. I know we hear it a lot, the future is now and the power of now, but there really is a lot of truth to this, spiritual truth to this. Our future as individuals and collectively as a church community is based on what we choose to do today, tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. And as individuals and collectively as a church, we must acknowledge the wrongs of the past, make amends where we can, and move on. And it's useful to go through a mental checklist in terms of what our narrative about the future might be. Are we writing chapters in the future that really have no basis in reality? And comparing our narrative or our expectation or anticipation of the future with the Lord's future. I'd like to end with the words of Joshua. So choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And now, as is our tradition in this community worship service, we really want to give you an opportunity to either just by yourself sit and reflect. There's a couple of questions in the program about today's message, or you can talk to the person next to you and have a moment of reflection and response to today's message. So the questions are there in your program, and I invite you to spend a little bit of time thinking about this.